Good evening and welcome back to the We Are Right Show. I'm your host, Brett C. Collins. How you doing out there on this wonderful Monday? It's Monday, and the counter narrative is already out there. They're trying to dispel everybody to try to get people's heads wrapped around the idea that maybe we need some moniker of a land incursion. Yep, that's what's being driven. That's what's being flaunted out there. That's what's being dangled out there. And I'm here to tell you that's all bullshit. The media is trying to spin that. They have no other way to explain this. They know that the polls aren't reflective of what the people see regarding the Iran war and everything else that's surrounding that we're just bombing them into submission, at least at the service level. But I think a lot of the idea about understanding what this war is about and understanding how the terrain is and how mountainous the region is, it's like Colorado times 3 with Montana, Wyoming, all mixed in there. That's what Iran really represents. It's a very largest country with mountains and terrains and stuff. And, a lot of people like the Economist and other groups of people out there, which is a wholly captured rag, a cabal rag, a deep state rag, is putting out that there's no exit in sight and we're stuck here and we're about to face more rising prices and stuff. Well, that, look, the dirt slop followed by all the rising prices is because of what? The individual greedy slop partitions of distributors and people making money off the gas and everything else. And they're doing this because I think it's reflexive of where the economy stands. Not just that, it's also because it's less driven by casualties, which we had 3 more this weekend, humanitarian concerns, or even what? Military escalation. So we're going to get to that really soon and stuff. So tonight's show, gloves are off. Land invasion next. More far left attacks. Parasite poop problems. Yeah, we're going to cover the parasite, kind of the contradiction of what's going on there. CDC and FDA are walking back certain things regarding this company. How did this really spread? We're going to cover that. Welcome in Pill.net. Over here on Rumble. What's going on? And on, what's up, Linda Perino? How you doing? Hello on YouTube. Yep. Tonight's show, again, the Parasite Brew problems. We're going to cover all the things. We're going to get the election integrity issues because I wanted to cover, if you didn't go back and watch it, that was a great show Friday night. I recommend you do it. I was going to do a show Sunday, but I haven't been feeling well. I'm fighting a cold. I think I'm losing my voice, so bear with me tonight. Welcome to Pill.net. Who is here tonight? What's up, Thea? Thank you for the 300 gold pills. Wood USA, thank you for the 219 gold pills. What's up, Sauce and Slancha? Good to see you, Darlell. Who else is here tonight? Good to see everybody out here. Miss Trusty Turnip, how you doing? What's up, MG615? Yes. What's up, Nancy Ann? Yeah. Happy freaking Monday. Exactly. Blue Pavilion, man. Nice shirt. What's up, Tracer C4? How you doing? How you feeling? All right. Good to see everybody out there. It's good to see Blue Vikings in the house. Wow. I'm just so happy to see everybody. So we're going to get into it right now. So like, share, and subscribe. Drop us a gold pill. Support the platform if you can. All right, let's move on. Let's get into this right now. So the AP is putting this out. We're going to cover the inverse of everything. So we're just going to cover over this weekend. The Economist is having this. A lot of people are talking about this. It's a lot of people saying there's no exit in sight. What's going on? Let me just say this. We have bombed Somalia since 2007 over 500 times up until this point. It's from 2007 with multiple presidents and to 2026. We have bombed them, and we've been fighting Somalia, Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization, and ISIS over there. So we've been dealing with them. And no one makes a good goddamn lick about that. You know why? Because no one fucking cares. Why? Because Somalia has nothing to offer. Okay? You understand that? They have nothing to offer. No one gives a shit about Somalia. They don't give a fuck about these stupid, dopes and all these low IQ people over there. But, you got no problem coming over here and let's make them rich, help them scam and stuff. Be our drones to scam. I think what you need to see here and understand is that when you look at Somalia, and we've been bombing them since 2007, no one makes an iota claim about that. But this whole thing, because we lost 3 service members, all right, we lost, I believe, 2 in Jordan and 1 in Iraq. Yeah, and we're up to 17. I understand that. But I think that the less that this war is driven by the casualty scenario, and the humanitarian concerns are, and even the military escalation has made this kind of like a war that people can swallow. You know, they can swallow, they can get it, they understand it, they can process it. It's not like Iraq. We're losing thousands a day, or Vietnam. Some people want to compare it to Vietnam. It's not even close. Vietnam is like, Iran is 3 times bigger than Vietnam. Okay, and the how you look at this mountainous terrain, it's just like the Midwest. Add like 5 states in the Midwest: Cheyenne Mountain times 10, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. That's what it is, and they have so many bases underneath. They have so many things they've dug in. So it's very hard to understand and perceive what we're doing here. Some people, even I, have suggested that the possibility of the Karg Island has already been taken or is going to be taken. I believe so. It'll be a small amount of troops that are going to go in there. I believe that. If it already hasn't done with some special ops, JSOC, what have you. But I think the overarching thing is how the media is presenting this. You have 3 people that died, and of course that brings up the total to 17 people. Even one loss is sad. It is. Okay? Even one loss is sad, and I'm not going to belabor it. All right, especially for what this is. And now President Trump saying the gloves are off. Okay? Well, you know what? Look, so the gloves are off. Let me explain something to you right now, and I'll just read this. The U.S. military said Sunday that another American serviceman was killed as a part of the war with Iran, bringing the total number of deaths to 17. The deaths reflect the complicated reality that American boots don't need to be on the ground, and they're to be lethal risk. Okay, so the AP is putting this out. In conflict that involves drones, missiles, and airplanes, American forces are arrayed across the Middle East, making this and other nations targets of Iran's fighting. And that's the problem. We're losing more people because we have bases and we have people stationed around all these different Middle East countries. Have you ever thought about it in some way that this is also a driving narrative? I think a stalking horse for future endeavors to pull out militarily from these regions, because the longer we're there, the more harm that can come to us, the more we're stretched thin in the Middle East. I think in some way that maybe this war is also utilizing and showcasing simultaneously that the availability, the affordability, and the price of death, that's what it seems like, by American servicemen just being at these bases. Like, you know, the Iraqi prime minister just came over, or the president, and now that we're moving out. We're coming out of Iraq. They're going to scuttle the bases, as they should. We don't need to be there. I could say that for many other parts and many other regions of the Middle East. Why do we need to be there? And I think this war is showing that any involvement that we have in the Middle East, any entanglement, okay, the loss of life is great. And I think that's what this war is also, I think, giving people like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be in Qatar or Kuwait. I understand we have to have some bases there. I understand certain things in certain regions, why and stuff. But I think it's possible. It's also giving people a window to say, hey, look, is it really necessary? Do you need troops in Iraq? I mean, what do we got? 5,000 there? That's coming out. Do we need troops here or troops there and stuff like that? We already got stuff in Saudi Arabia. We're always protecting them and defending them. But consider that. So President Trump said the war is necessary to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. First, the fatalities came too soon after the war started. And shortly after the war on February 28th, Iranian drone strike at a civilian port in Kuwait killed 6. Okay. See my point? Do we need to be in Kuwait per se? That's another good point. The soldiers were part of supply and logistics unit based in Iowa, and we're working with a shipping container style building that had no defenses. A 7th soldier died more than a week later after being wounded during a March 1st attack by Iran in Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Later in March, 6 service members were killed when a KC-135 refueling aircraft supporting U.S. military operations crashed. See, this is another example. I mean, this all could have been avoided, all right? It crashed in Iraq. The aircraft was in a friendly airspace when unspecified incident involving another aircraft took place. We still don't know what happened about that. But on Monday, U.S. military Navy pilot died in a helicopter crash in the Arabian Sea, and the Navy initially described the July 1st crash as an emergency landing, and there was no indication the emergency was caused by a hostile scenario. So drones and missiles are still claiming lives. Okay, this is the point, what I'm saying. And I want to be clear about what I'm expressing here and stuff. Because the question is, how, when you really think about it, has the gloves really come off? I mean, I'm going to give you the inverse. I'm going to say why the gloves have stayed mostly on. I think Trump and his team realize that restraint and tough rhetoric is the only way, and consider this, economic and global stability. Because if we go hard and hot and we start really going deep into these and burying into these bunkers and really, let's just say, blowing up this country, whether from a humanitarian standpoint, bridges, the salt water, any water, anything that we do in some way, which could be tantamount to a war crime, you'd have to consider what are we willing to do? How far are we willing to go? So thus, a full escalation, prolonged bombing, or ground operations could close the Strait of Hormuz long-term, spike oil prices, which they are now, no matter what, they're back up to 90, crash markets, and trigger a worldwide depression. Trump has basically noted that the ships today that are resuming the oil flow and the markets rising on deal prospects and avoiding an economic catastrophe. He explicitly is weighing bombing versus deals for humanitarian and prosperity reasons. That's the point. The reason why the gloves technically haven't come off, even though he's saying they've come off, he plays hot and cold, nice guy, bad, good cop, bad cop type of scenario. That's not necessarily moving the needle. So the point is, there's only so much limitations that air power can do alone. Bombing drives leaders into deep granite caves. That's what Tehran is. It's deep embedded in there like a tick. It doesn't achieve lasting regime change without boots on the ground. So if you really want these people out, you have a bunch of splintered groups where the IRGC is all over the place, and probably they're not talking to each other. Maybe communication is not working. You have one group of people you're talking to and another group of people, and they're operating on their own type of, like, let's just say, I wouldn't say clandestine, but compartmentalized in some way. They're operating separately without having any type of knowledge if anyone else is still alive or what have you. And I think in some way they could be splintered in fraction in this way. So you have many competing groups that are operating in this manner. And the risks for the same leaders that are reemerging. The strikes were effective and they were degrading capabilities, but not decisive for permanent ends. The Economist put out today, where's the exit door? Where's the exit stage right? Are we ever going to be able to get out of here? Now, it's only been, 40, 50 days? It's like 4.5 months. It's not like we've been in this 4 years. So the practical outcomes and leverage. So the limited actions achieve, all right, the key goals are what? A weakened military, no nuclear weapon, path reopen, shipping lanes, what have you, while keeping the pressure on negotiations, because that's what Trump wants. He wants them to capitulate. He wants them to settle. Trump has touted unconditional surrender style results via the MOU, asset unfreezes, and sanctions relief in exchange for compliance. He prefers deals over endless fighting. In short, the gloves have come partially off in targeted strikes and strong warnings, but full removal, that means total war, has been held back to secure a better long-term result without massive costs, without really doing such irreparable damage to the country on the surface level that it would be, let's just say, it wouldn't benefit the Middle East in any way, and it wouldn't benefit the regime because they know they would starve their people. They wouldn't care. You could have a mass exodus of people leaving. So that's another thing to consider. So this fits Trump's, let's just say, idea that he puts a little bit of pressure, a little pragmatism in there. And what he's doing is that the situation, which is fluid and ongoing, you have to consider that any potential for undue further escalation, because I don't believe the gloves are totally off. That was the point of what it was saying, is how people are utilizing his terminology, because he says one thing and does another. So the deaths in the war are not limited to Americans. And consider that. I was reading there's about 500 people that just recently died over the weekend. It's just the numbers are growing. We don't know who it is regarding this. And, there's a lot of scuttlebutt that we're not telling about the injuries that we have to our American servicemen over there. I think in some way, look, it really doesn't matter at this point. We've only lost right now 17. They're reporting that. And, that's still a terrible number that we lost. Is it possible we could have avoided it? It's possible we could have. But if you look down into the future, all right, and if you're seeing how complicated this issue is and how deep rooted this is, if they were to have an actual ultimate weapon in some way, Look how long it's taken us just to get it. And it's just us and Israel for the most part. And I'm also reading that there's a discussion right now that there are many different infiltrators on the ground, especially in Mossad and other groups that have been here. Now, we don't know how long we're working. You have to consider that both Israel and Iran are run by the same proxy banking cartel per se, and that there are different factions in this in some way that are keep operating, keeping this flowing. Let me show you something else. This comes from News Nation right now. This is about the gloves off comment. This is where these things are coming from. A lot of people are suggesting that the commentary that President Trump is saying, he's warning them. He keeps warning them. He keeps saying, Trump warns the gloves are off if Iran attacks Americans. I think they know not to touch our troops. U.S. forces remain in a defensive posture in the Middle East. Israel and Iran trade strikes for the fifth day. So what it is basically they're saying is that they're concerned that what they're seeing. Now, we don't know if they're able to see through that granite. I can't say that. I don't know if it's like, lead to Superman. You can't see inside those bunkers. I don't know if they're able to penetrate that in some way, or maybe have some type of technology that they can understand where these areas or targeted areas are, where they're actually moving weapons and having drone technology that are coming out. But President Trump has warned Tehran on Tuesday that the gloves are off. Okay, if Iran targets U.S. interests in the Middle East. So he's basically saying, don't hit our partners over there and target our bases, because if what you do, we will come at you in a different manner. I don't know what that is. And why are we saying this now? I think there's a point to this, that we have that this thing was purposely dragged on, all right, a lot longer than most people believe, because we had to exhaust every option we possibly could, all right, to sell the narrative that, hey, look, we did everything we could to get them to the table, and they chose a different path. And ultimately, that path will lead to what? The final destruction or end game to Iran. I don't know what that's going to be. I have no idea. But we'll come down so hard on them. We'll do everything to our people. The gloves are off, Trump told reporters on Air Force One when he returned to Washington day early from the Group of Seven summit in Canada. I think President Trump is trying to let them know that I think that something else is in play here. And I'll say this, because the counter narrative is out there. It's being flaunted out there to persuade, coax, and even induce the complexity of this conflict, which cannot be settled alone merely by bombing and droning out the surface or deep underground mountains terrain, and flush out as many installations that Iran has throughout the country. And whether fake media, ass clowns, TV admirals, generals, and the rest of them, they keep putting that out, that the only way through this is for some type of, let's just say, incursion. The idea is that will never happen. And if it does, and if something does happen in that way, it'll be in a context of such a small amount of special operators taking over that position of Carg Island and controlling it, because that's really the financial grease that makes that engine move smoothly. And if we are to control that area, I don't understand how we don't have that controlled now, or maybe we're just allowing that area as we inspect it, as we go through it. It may have already been taken now, but we're not really sure until the final blow is settled. And while all this other stuff is a distraction, that more campaigns of bombing are irrelevant. All right. If we didn't pause and take notice about Somalia or Syria, I mean, we hit Syria back in the day like 100 times over. No one cared about hitting Syria. No one could care less about Somalia. Again, we're still doing that to this day. Over 500 sorties and missiles and drones have hit areas where Al-Shabaab and ISIS have control. So why is this war any more special? Because, again, I will say to you right now, it's the economic impact, all right, and that the people's everyday experience of it is what's reflective of how we view this conflict, okay? Let me continue on. So Glenn Beck puts this out. He makes a good point here, and I'll get to your comments in 1 second. What's up, Curious Cat? Thank you for the cookie. Good to see you. What's up, Patty B? So the point is, he says this, and you know what? This is the focus of what we're talking about. The weirdest war in my lifetime, and almost the most dangerous. Trump is to keep oil prices down, meaning that he can't make a big deal out of anything, or else fear and panic will drive the markets into depression. I agree. I think that you have such a greed slop between oil and gas industry, with the food, agriculture industry, and many other people in this, whether they're trembling behind the scenes or they're being pushed out there to in some way increase the pricing, all right, in some way to double down, triple down on pricing. So this war, this conflict, whatever happens, all right, in some way, we will lose because the people will see, hey, look, it's too expensive. It's costing me at home. And I think that's what it is. We're caring less about how many casualties are dying, how many humanitarian concerns we have. See, this issue, no one cares about Iran and the death toll, whether it's their citizens or the IRGC or their people that are in control, the power of the structured government. No one cares. You can't make this argument about Gaza. No one is equivocating that. In fact, people don't give a shit. They don't. I hear this all the time. No one cares about Iran. No one cares about Somalia. They care a lot about Gaza, but that's a different story. So even the military escalation, as it goes up, 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 up in some way, people are still comfortable with the idea of what we're seeing. Because once the economy starts to tilt in some way in a negative fashion where gas is exponentially higher, again, where it goes through the roof, or food and let's just say distributions and let's just say groceries or what have you reach a point in apex that it's going to be intolerable, that's when this war will change. Let's listen to Glenn Beck.
I think this is one of the strangest wars I have seen in my lifetime because it feels as though we haven't fully committed to this war, and we haven't. We are fighting it in a way we have not fought before. Why? We're fighting it differently because none of us want to have troops on the ground. None of us want another 20-year ongoing,
that's the point.
never-ending war. None of us.
That's the point. There you go. He had a big celebration signing the MOU. This is the point. This is what he's getting to. The reason why we were celebrating at a big thing is because, look, he got them to sign and capitulate some letter. Now they crawfished it and they backstabbed us and the deal. So now here we are right now. We're laying the boom on them. But what Glenn Beck is saying right now is that you either do this or it's the alternative. And there's no stomach for ground troops whatsoever. There's none. There's simply not. If there are going to be any incursions where people are going to be around, it'll be Carg Island, and it'll be a small group of people trying to take over that island, whatever that means, or however means possible. You won't see 100,000 troops, 50,000 troops. You won't see that. You'll have special operators in the numbers, I'd say far less than 2,500, if that. Thank you, Sean Joe, for the cookie. Let's get to this.
On the other hand, if you have thought this through and you have actually taken the time to think it through on nuclear weapons, you cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. Here's the problem with that. They have been telling us for 35 years they're weeks away from having a bomb. They're just days away. They might have already launched a missile. Okay, we have heard it over and over and over and over and over and over again that they're days away from having a bomb. I don't know how close they were to having a bomb. I have no idea. I wish I did, but I don't know because I don't know who to trust anymore. Because everybody, it seems, in our life, our political life, has lied to us.
Yep.
So I don't trust our intelligence agencies. I don't trust what the president is being briefed on, per se. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is. I do know this. They must not and cannot have a nuclear weapon. This is not North Korea. You know, when the president was negotiating to get him to behave, you know, he was like, oh, crazy little rocket man, and maybe I'll vaporize. First of all, you should know one thing. I know President Trump. President Trump is not afraid of anything. President Trump, when he was shot, was on the ground. Everybody was dogpiling. And as I've told you before, he told me what was going through my mind. Get up. Get up. You want to represent the United States of America? You're not afraid. We don't cower to anybody. Get up. And that's why you heard him. Get up. Get up. I got to get up. I got to get up. Remember when they dogpiled on him? And that's why when he stood up, he said, fight, fight, fight. He wasn't talking about political. He was sending a message to the world. America does not cower. He is not afraid. He is terrified of nuclear war. Terrified. He knows, and he is right. He knows somebody uses a tactical nuke. and everything spirals out of control. He knows anybody uses a single nuke, you don't stop it. Every single war game since the 1950s to today, they do them all the time. Every single war game ends the same way. Complete annihilation of the human race on Earth. It's always full-scale war. No matter how they war game it, no matter what they do or don't do, once somebody drops a nuke, it's over. And he knows it, and he's terrified, and he has rebuilt our military and our nuclear arsenal. He knows what these things can do. So, he's not afraid of anything except for that. You shouldn't be afraid of anything except for that. And unlike North Korea, unlike China, unlike Russia, MAD works with them. You know, little rocket man. He wants to live, okay? He's not some crazy person who has a death wish. He wants to live. And so China keeps him in check. He knows China doesn't want him to use a nuclear weapon, doesn't mind him having one, but under their watch and their control. This is entirely different. These people only answer to their twisted version of God.
Okay, I'll leave you at that. That's the understanding where we are right now. And I know a lot of people don't like the fact is that, 3 service members died. I get it. I don't like it either. I don't like the fact that we're dealing with this. We don't know what the intel was. We don't know per se why we're there. I mean, if you want to take President Trump at face value, that this situation is a lot worse than we think it is, where it hasn't been, let's just say, dealt with in the last 47 years. And they have attacked us in Iraq and Afghanistan. They have embassy bombings. They have their hands all over the place. I'm not justifying in some way. What I'm saying is that there is a narrative right now that's being pushed out there to get us boots on the ground. And this administration is no way going to do that whatsoever. There is no stomach to do this, but they are trying to undermine and dispel this speculation. They want to throw in a lot of supposition and suspicion to suggest that, look, if we broadcast this enough to say, hey, look, if there's no exit strategy and the only alternative is to send troops in there to go after them and stuff, where are you going to send troops in there? If this whole region is comprised of 5 or 6, let's just say, United States. Think about that. You combine Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, a couple other mountainous regions. That's what we're dealing with. All right. I mean, we're not going to go through like we were doing in Afghanistan, going around and finding the giants in the caves. That would be great, but I don't think people have the stomach for that. They just don't. So our situation is kind of not precarious, but to say the gloves are off, I don't think the gloves are off at all. That's why I was putting that out there. Land invasion, that's how people are spinning this, because they are trying to suggest, look, if you don't have an alternative and you just want to continue bombing the shit out of the surface, all right, looking for more, let's just say, opportunities to find out when they want to send out their drones and stuff, and then boom, we just hit that spot where they come out, where they burrow out of the ground. Okay, that's what we're going to do. But I don't foresee anything in the future that is going to end this in what's a bit. And I think that my biggest problem that I have here is what are we going to do after? What are we going to do after? Because a lot of people are saying, look, I want to get off this. You got the midterms in less than 90 days. How do we get off this rodeo? I want to show you this. The national interest, the national interest. Why Americans should never, ever think about invading Iran. And I'll just put this up there briefly and I'll read a couple of things. We got to move on to our next subject because I got so much more here. Here's what you need to remember. While occupying Iran would be at least as difficult as Iraq, which we're not going to do, and Afghan occupations, even invading Iran, would prove enormously challenging. Consequently, while conquering Iran is the most sustainable way to prevent it from building a nuclear weapon, Washington is unlikely to attempt to do so, even though the media, and this article came out March 13, 2021. The only military action that can truly prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon is for the United States to invade and occupy the country, potentially turning over to a U.S.-friendly regime that would uphold Iran's non-nuclear status. Despite the widespread support in the United States for preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon, this was 2021, mind you. Look at the article, March 13, 2021. This option is almost never proposed as any serious observer. So while many other rags and the media are throwing this out there as to obfuscate and to undermine and supplant the administration and to put these falsehoods out there in some way to say, hey, look, this is how we get off this. This is how we find our way to exit. There's no military plan in doing so. Now, there may be other things that they have, all right, but they're not going to tell you. So Iran's ability to defend itself against U.S. invasion begins with its most formidable geography. As a Stratfor, a private intelligence firm, has explained, Iran is a fortress surrounded on three sides by a mountain and on the fourth by an ocean, with a wasteland at its center. Iran is extremely difficult to conquer, and while stopping the power of the water has always made land invasions far more preferable for invading the party, the age of precision-guided munitions has been amphibious invasions, particularly challenging. And remember, we had boats out there or ships out there with amphibious Marines that were supposed to do something. We don't know if anything is being done. They're not going to tell us. As such, the United States would strongly prefer to invade Iran through one of its land borders, just as it did when it was invading Iraq in 2003. Unfortunately, there are few options in regard. On this first glance, commencing an invasion from Western Afghanistan would stem the most plausible route, given the U.S. military already has troops stationed in that country. All right, I'm just showing you that in 2021, the mere, let's just say, suggestion in some way to actually equivocate that the possibility that this would happen. Well, you know what? There's other stuff that's there, and that came out in 2021. I want to show you this: speculations over a ground campaign. This is July 19th. This was just yesterday. I'll just blow this up, and then we'll move on. I just want to cover this. Trump now continues playing his neocon forever war against Iran. Now, this Defend Democracy Press. So you'll see the rag where it's coming from, with no plan or end in sight. And now the latest reports indicate his intention to escalate the strikes onto Iranian civil and structure like power plants and beyond in the coming weeks. That's what they're suggesting. I don't believe they're going to do that, because even though they could, people could see that as a war crime, technically. The caveat is that it would likely be for the islands and not for U.S. troops, or at least not with the troops leading the charge. Trump himself intimated this, hinting that the Gulf nations should supply the ground troops listed here. In fact, the above interview clip, I'm not going to play it right now, reveals several quite telling things. First, what it says about not hitting oil terminals on Carg Island. He says they represent a major chunk of the world economy, which proves that we've been saying for a long time, we have to seize that island. That Trump in some way is trapped because despite all his bluster, he would be shooting himself in the foot and destroying Iranian oil infrastructure, as it would tank his own economy. Unless we're simultaneously, have you noticed that ever since the Iraqi president came, we have $60 billion of deal with ExxonMobil, Shell, and Chevron, all now going to work with Iraq in some way. So Iraq is going to be the new Iran. So that's what we're getting to. But more strategically revealing this tidbit that if we degrade them far enough and deep enough back, I would take Carg Island. And I believe this is the only possibility of landing a ground incursion there if we have not already taken there. The U.S. currently does not have the capability to take Carg Island because it's too dangerous. That's what we're told. Iranian capabilities are still present, which would wreak havoc and casualties on the troops. That's what they're suggesting here. Trump's plan appears to be bombard the coastal region for a long time in order to degrade Iran's straight capabilities, that such a pushback deep enough as such allow a safe corridor for troops and somehow land on the island. Okay, that's the Holy Grail. That's what they're talking about. That's what they think. Now, whether or not it's already been done, whether there's been an attempt or not, it's irrelevant. But the point being right now, what's going on with 17 dead, we're still at this point where people are showcasing that they have a level of tolerance for this, regardless of the casualties and the humanitarian concerns and the military escalation. The only response about this that I've seen in the polling is in regards to about the economy and how people react about the pricing, whether it's gas and oil, whether it's about groceries or anything else that is impacted on this because of the greed slop that is happening by our industries that are on this. And now they're being simultaneously forced in some way to shutter that or push this down our throat. And President Trump has already showcased us in some way that, look, it doesn't have to be this way. All right. They're doing this on their own, and it's not necessarily because of the war, but that's what you're made to see. All right, moving on. let's get out of this. Let's get into more far left attacks. So there's more radical attacks that are happening. I think that's happening. So, yeah, I'm going to get out of this. So there's more attacks that are happening all over the place, and President Trump is pointing it out. Oh, wait. Hold on a second. Let me get to this. This is what I wanted to show you. I'm sorry. One more thing. I got more to this. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you. This was a good point. And this, if you're on X and you guys read anything on X and stuff, I recommend you seeing this from Observing Consciousness. All right. The key is what Trump did not say. This is in regards to Bibi Netanyahu. When Mandami had said today that when he comes to visit, and I think the trip was canceled, that he's going to arrest him. First of all, he's got diplomatic immunity. I don't know how you're going to arrest him. All right. But he did not declare Netanyahu innocent. He did not ease the allegations and did not say accountability will come. Trump said Netanyahu will not be arrested while in the United States. That is a jurisdictional line, a rejection of Mandami turning New York City into a stage for foreign lawfare and personal political theater. Trump is separating who controls the reckoning from whether a reckoning exists. That's a good point. Netanyahu may still be held to account for many crimes ultimately established, but through other channels and another point in sequence under Trump's authority to recognize as legitimate. This was not an absolution. It was Trump taking the arrest weapon off Mandami's hands. So Trump puts this out, Benjamin Netanyahu, because Mandami said, yeah, he comes to New York, he's going to be arrested. He said, Bibi will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States of America. He does not say anything else. So this was not an absolution. It was for Trump taking the arrest weapon out of Mandami's hands. I mean, honestly, who would think that the mayor of New York could arrest him? On what authority could they really arrest somebody like that coming over here? I find that, and you know what? Look, whether you look at Mandami as this, this casting character or whatever it is in some way, it's always funny after he says something, Trump has to come in to course correct him very simply. And then I think make the point, say, wait a minute, hold on a second. This is off. What are you saying? And then he highlights behind the scenes what Mandami's saying that is incorrect, but not proportional to what Mandami was illustrating, which I find very interesting. That's my point. Let me say hello to other people. Darrell, Satan himself was beautiful, angel before he rebelled. It would make sense to push outward physical beauty. That's funny. Darrell, thank you for the can. Too many unknowns in this country. There's a 9/11 event coming. Islam has no place being here. Nope. Sean Joe, what's up? Thank you for the cookie. And the cookie, Darrell, give you the can. I believe it's coming stateside. They called the war, and then it's going to be personal. It's going to be another 1776. Yes, I think we're in store of it. The leftists are already out there. And so, there's going to be a hodgepodge of different groups. It's not just one group simultaneously. We're going to see a caveat of groups. Persians have been around for thousands of years. They ain't going nowhere. No, I don't think so, Blue Devilian, man. I think you're right. I don't think so either. I don't think they're going anywhere. And I don't think the Trump administration wants to kill innocents and blow them to kingdom come. All right. There's something else that we're going to wait to see that is going to give pause on this. So, I mean, again, we've had tremendous, I think, restraint because as much as I'm saying he says the gloves are off, I was showing you they're not. They were never off. I think the gloves never came off to begin with. And it's just been tit for tat, and we're lightly pounding him. And again, you don't see anything about this war anymore. You notice that? Just like you don't see any of the bombings in Somalia or what happened in Syria. We don't see anything that's going on in Ukraine. You notice how this war has just moved out. Only the media records this from whatever missile strikes they have or whatever things on some loop that they like to record in some way. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We don't see any of this stuff. And you know what? That's my problem. With these things, we don't see the wars anymore. We're just hearing that these things are happening and we're commenting on there in some way based upon the articles that are being put out there and distributed and how they're using this as agitprop to gin things up when in fact, when we know that this disinfo, what they're dispelling, what they're putting out, the speculation and the conjecture does not make any sense. No one here wants a ground war. And you can't convince one person or another to want to do that. Whether this is going to have an incursion or not for something that will be secret and clandestine, and we may never know. That's the point. CNN data guru flags warning sign for Democrats in midterms. This was good.
We've been talking about the fact that Democrats might be waking up this morning a wee little bit nervous. Why is that? Well, there's new polling out this weekend which suggests that while they are leading in the so-called generic ballot test, the race for Congress, it's not by much, and certainly maybe not by enough. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Etten. So the numbers show what, Harry?
They show a big worry sign, at least compared to history, because I want to take it back through the history machine. And I want to note, okay, House National July, CNBC, Washington Post poll average, midterm years. This is the generic ballot, right? Where were we back in 2006 when, of course, Democrats would go back on to win the House? They were up by 12 in an average of those two polls. How about 2018? They were up by an average of 10 in those two polls. Look at where that average is now. Well less than half of either the level of 2018 and 2006. Way down there. Yes, they're ahead, but they're ahead. I have to shrink down on the screen. They're ahead by only 4 points, which is significantly less than what we saw in 2018 and 2006 when Democrats took back the House. So, as I said, this is an This is a warning sign. While, yes, Democrats are ahead, not by anywhere near the margin they were in prior wave years.
Because 4 isn't 10.
No.
And it's not 12.
No, they taught me that back in pre-K, that 4 is not 10 or 12.
And not only that, but 4 might not be enough with all the redistricting we've seen.
That's exactly right, Johnny B. So this isn't just, hey, you know what, we want to lead by 8 or 10 or 12 because we want an even larger majority. You might not even get the majority at all if, in fact, the House popular vote ends up by 4. Because just take a look at this. Okay, the Washington Post CNBC poll lead, it's 4 on average, right? But what about needed to control with redistricting? You need probably a 3 to 4 point victory nationwide in the national House vote in order to get a House majority. You are right on the edge with this 4 point lead in the average of the CNBC Washington Post polls, right on the edge of even getting that majority. And that's why I said this is a very worrisome sign. This is troublesome for Democrats because despite all of Donald Trump's unpopularity in the polls, they do not seem to be building an advantage that guarantees them the House or any.
Well, that's the point, because when people look at these candidates, especially what's going on in Maine, they had some transgender that was on there in the competition that was saying that she or he or whatever the hell is, okay, has its period through its rectum. These are the people that they're putting up as main candidates after the planter fail or fall for a Senate opposition against Susan Collins. It's embarrassing. If you just look at the candidates alone, how can you seriously take these people with a grain of salt? It's almost a joke. It's embarrassing. So that's why the numbers are where they are. But the more and more you read through and what a lot of these people's positions are, the numbers are starting to go down and people will be less likely. When you get to that primary situation and you look at this candidate, well, this candidate says, you're going to get free everything. And you know that's bullshit. You know that's bullshit. You can get free donuts. No, you're not. You're not getting anything free. It's just a lie. They're going to sell you a lot of bullshit, a lot of Christmas stories. It's like you're going to get a lot of presents under the tree when, in fact, it's going to turn out to be coal. It's going to be worse than coal. All right? It's not going to be nothing. And I think in some way, people need to start to recognize that you're going to have choices between A and B only. And whether you like the Republican or not, or the conservative or not, because you don't like them. Like, I don't like Susan Collins. I mean, she's a rhino. But, I mean, if I'm a Maine resident, and it's between Susan Collins and whatever else, whatever demon they're putting up for the DSA party, Democrat Socialists of America. Yeah, I'm voting for Susan Collins. I mean, I think that's how people are going to look at it. It's going to be black or white. And many different areas of the country, you're going to see that. Are these stories and narratives that they're going to carry, that they're going to say that this is what they want? I mean, they're going to want to bring back transgenderism. I mean, all this stuff is a mask for the backdoor of Islamists and everything else they want. It's much more deeper and pervasive that they're suggesting at this moment. So, I think in some way how they're actually putting this up and how CNN is spinning this, they're not doing enough justice to say, hey, look, when you get to these individual fights in a primary area, not the runoff, and we'll cover what's going on right now in South Carolina, but when you get to these individual fights, all right, it's only A or B. It's binary numbers, 0 or 1. Which one do you choose? That's it. I mean, come when we got a governor race here in Florida, I don't, probably my pick after the runoff, after we have a primary in Florida, it's done. I'm not going to be able to, look at this and say, hey, look, my choices are gone. All right. And if it's choice A, who's better than choice B, I'm going to choose that, even though I didn't vote for that person in the primary. I think that's how people are looking at this. That's the only way you have to be pragmatic. You have to be practical. You have to say, I don't want to lose the state. I don't want to lose this to some nut job socials. I don't want to have everything that I'm seeing that DeSantis did in the state, which was a lot positive in a lot of different ways, fall to a socialist or a Marxist in any way. So obviously I'm going to go with the pick that's the better choice. And I think that's how people ultimately are going to see what is it going to be in my best interest. Because all the Democrats do is want to raise taxes. So what's the number one thing they want to do? They shower you with all these wonderful goods, all these wonderful things like it's Christmas every fucking day, when in fact it's worse than Christmas. All right. It's a hellscape. And you know what I know. Just look at New York, what happened today, and we're going to cover that. I think I'm going to get into it now. I think ultimately we'll get into what it is. But getting back to the oil rather quickly, because I want to share this with you. And I think a lot of people don't know this. That Eric Doherty put this out. What the fuck? It's been exposed that the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve has been destroyed by the Biden administration. With one site left inoperable, forcing President Trump to clean up the mess and surge investments to fix everything. The previous administration also left one of the 4 sites inoperable. This forced the Trump administration to invest more money to more equipment that blocked access to that site. That's insane. They purchased equipment and left it on the surface and did not install it. Some of the equipment, due to the weather, was exposed to. It is no longer useful. So what? We've completely wasted taxpayer dollars on that to install. They also failed to maintain some of those sites. The Biden administration drained it of 80 million barrels before the midterm elections. Listen to this. This is unbelievable.
More out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is that it's at a 43-year low right now. The Biden administration drained it of 180 million barrels before the midterm elections in 2022 and never fully refilled it. In a Fox Business exclusive, the current energy undersecretary managing SPR sites says the previous administration also left one of the 4 sites inoperable. Under the undersecretary tells me that this forced the Trump administration to invest more money to move equipment that blocked access to that site.
They purchased equipment and left it on surface and did not install it. Some of that equipment, due to the weather it was exposed to, is no longer useful. So we've completely, wasted taxpayer dollars on that equipment that the last administration sat on surface and didn't install. They also failed to maintain some of the sites.
He tells me that he believes the last administration had no long-term plan to maintenance and work on those strategic petroleum sites. The Trump administration is now trying to do it. And Harris, on that refilling, there's a swap program they're doing. So they are refilling the SPR after the release happens.
Wow. That's some scary stuff. That's a national security threat. And I don't think a lot of people have noticed that. We have a raid from True Reporting. I didn't know Thomas was going on tonight. That's great. What's up, Trump One? How you doing? Thanks for the raid. Good to see everybody. Welcome into the We Are Rise show. All right, let's get back to this a little bit more. Let's get into a couple other things. All right, let's move on. Here we go. So we had the World Cup. I guess Spain won 1-0. I couldn't care less. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch anything. I didn't watch the national anthem. I don't care about soccer. I like the fact that what it did and how it played well in our country and stuff. I look at soccer though as a third world instrument of a certain group. I mean, never mind. I'll just put it this way: I'm not a soccer fan. I like all the camaraderie. I like how all the countries, they did it in multiple countries. It worked out well. The security was great. The FBI shot down 700 drones during the World Cup. Overall, it was a great thing for America, or for America to be reintroduced to Europeans, Latin Americans, South America, what have you. I mean, all in all, it was a great thing. It worked out, I think, financially. It worked out for a lot of different reasons. I could care less. I mean, now that the United States was out, there was no reason for me to even want to take part in watching it. And so there you go. But overall, it was great, and it worked out, and it was beneficial to us. And I think President Trump did the right thing. Hopefully, they'll do it again. Do it right. So there's a lot of new people in here. What's up, Mad Hat One? Who else is here? Grammy B. What's going on? Unchained Rider. A lot of people are in here. Bruce Q. Wayne. Good to see everybody from True Reporting. Let's continue on. The FBI shoots down 700 drones during this. 700 drones. The FBI has pulled off the biggest security operation ever mounted for a sporting event, and hats off to them. I mean, this thing went out without a hitch. You think about how many people were filling the stadiums night in, night out for these events all over the place, and no issues whatsoever. No terrorist attacks, no threats. I have to give it to Kash Patel and the FBI. I mean, this is fantastic. 7 million fans during the 2026 FIFA World Cup while taking down more than 700 drones. Now, that's scary. These 700 drones that are operating, the Bureau committed to an unprecedented level of manpower to secure the tournament, which features 78 matches across 11 cities. Wow. And that's what we executed on, Patel said, comparing the challenge to securing 78 Super Bowls in 38 days. That's insane. That's insane. And see, this is why it was such a success. Not only it went off from a security standpoint and nothing happened, but they were able to take down this many drones and get a lot of insights into this, who was operating them, where did they come from. And there's a whole other discussion later on we'll talk about, but not tonight. We're proud to report that, thankfully, the men and women of the FBI and partners had no significant criminal attacks, no terrorist attacks. And just to put it in perspective, we had 6.5 million people attend 78 matches. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, they attended. They were buying stuff. They were, just the level of commerce that were all over the place. These cities were shattering records. The stands, the tournament shattered previous attendance records, drawing millions of international visitors. The FBI assigned 5,000 personnel to the event, including more than 4,000 agents to staff field offices, 800 employees, FBI headquarters, 2 legal attaché offices, support 59 Homeland Security Task Force. The Bureau also completed 300,000 background checks. That's amazing. Now, you see, they could do background checks on this, okay? But, I mean, when you just open up the country and the border, which has been sealed for 14 months now, almost 15 months now, nobody's getting in. Nobody's getting in. When you do these types of things, then there's not going to be a problem. See, it can be done. You can see it was done. It was done during this expose. I think that's what also the FIFA World Cup brought. With that many people in attendance, we could do that. We could do background checks. We could scan people. Now, they're not staying here. But the point being is that we're able to do this. That the Democrats say, yeah, I mean, it's just going to take time and waste our time. You don't need IDs. You don't need all this stuff. Yes, you do. This is the very essence of having this. This is the reason why these security checks happen. It's no different from security checks when you're voting. It has the same implications, in just at a different matter. Across the United States, Canada, Mexico, nearly 7 million fans. That's quite extraordinary. One of the biggest threats involves unauthorized drones. The official said the expensive unmanned aircraft could be used to monitor team practices, follow players between hotel rooms, stadiums, scout security operations, and carry explosives or chemical agents. Whoa. If you were in that space, you're going to be taken down, and that's why we took down 700, Patel said. Some of these folks were maybe borderline nuisances, while many of them were criminal in terms of violations of the airspace and also failing to register their drones. We're not taking any chances. Okay, so they were able to flag a lot of these things, dedicated to counter-drone training school from Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. Wow, where the FBI specifically trained for the worst and worst. Former FBI Director Dan Bongino played a key role in this. Okay. I mean, that's just amazing. That numbers to take down all this stuff. So obviously we have the technology to repel borders on this, especially if there's an attack. You could see that they were doing it. And you notice how they were pointing out the seriousness of a lot of these people. Whether they didn't tell you if they were hobbyists per se. They didn't tell you who these people were. And a lot of people, if they were arrested, they just were able to take down these drones. All right. And whether or not they charged the people that are operating them through an IP address or not have you, or if they were using a VPN, we don't know. We don't know anything about them. Okay, let's get to the big news of the day. Good to see everybody here. Thank you, Thea, for the 600 gold pills. Let's see who else is here. I want to say hi to everybody. What's up, Trump One? Thank you for the cookie. Darlo for the can. Too many dudes in dresses taking up the arse. Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. I know. That whole Maine situation for senator for the Democrats and the DSA. I mean, it's just shocking. It's disgustingly gross. And that some people saying that was Planter who shaved his beard, dressed up in that, and they were trying to auction him off. And then explain. So if you listen to that Maine senatorial, let's just say debate, it was disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's almost a joke. I mean, you could see right through these people. I mean, it's just sick and twisted. First, they put up a guy that, he's got, a Nazi tattoo on him. He's obviously a serial rapist or he drugs women. A lot of sketch stuff. He likes to jerk off and masturbate and pot and all these potty places. I don't know what's going on with this guy. And then he drops out. He's out. And then they got a bunch of wackadoos. Some people that were sitting on that Maine senatorial debate. Some of them have arrests for mortgage fraud and all these other different things. But this is who you're left. I mean, why aren't there better provisions in place to screen these people? There should be laws in place. You cannot be a criminal or have a background that you committed a felony or any other mental health areas and stuff. Like 10% of our population has mental health issues. 10%. Do the math on that. All right. None of these people should be allowed to vote. Nevertheless, they shouldn't be allowed to run for any candidacy for election. I mean, think about all the low IQ people. You have about less than 10% of those people in this country now with an IQ of 80 or less. They shouldn't be allowed to vote. Or yet again, run for office as well. We need provisions in some way. Oh, well, that's a slippery slope. Well, yeah, not a lot of times. If you've seen in the last decade, look how well that's worked out for us. That's exactly the point. So the FBI and a ICE radical arrested for allegedly setting fire off a device in a New York federal building. Officials said the fire appeared to be started by fireworks, and that's how the media reported it, and were loaded into a wagon bearing a sign that read, "ICE out of our streets." So the update, Charles Barnacle Jr., Assistant Director of the FBI and FBI's New York field office, named the suspect in the attack today before 9 a.m., a man by the name of Andrew Arabica. Okay, Arabica. Arrived at the 26th Federal Fed Plaza just behind us on Ward Street, and the employee's entrance and the building were ignited by gasoline. Whoa, incendiary device. I got more to go. I'll cover this. I'll move out of this, and you'll see some commentary by the FBI. So Nick Switter puts this out. This guy, not good. Not good at all. Listen to what they say here.
We take this very seriously. On his cart, he had a cart. He had anti-ICE literature on it. When he was being arrested, he yelled derogatory terms to ICE, used bad words, obviously. He is an anti-American, anti-government extremist. We know that from what he said. We know that from what he has said post-arrest. And we know that from what his actions that he tried to take today. So I will turn it over to Police Commissioner.
Yeah, we're going to see more of these people. I don't know if he's part of an Antifa type group or he's just one of these people anti-ICE, as they were saying. I mean, we don't know for sure what he is. All he knows he's a brown suspect. We don't know what ties that he has. A brown 4'5", likely beneficiary of birthright citizenship, just injured 2 federal agents while trying to firebomb the federal building in Manhattan. Yeah. I guess they got something on them from that device and they were injured taking him down. These people are crazy. And the more and more people we're going to see protesting ICE. See, we wouldn't have this problem if we didn't have so many illegal criminal alien scum in this country that snuck through the back door or has been allowed to live and nestle in here like a tick dug in for the last decades. Okay? Those are the people more problematic. Those are the people that when you see Scott Bessent say, we're going to debank them. We're going to cut their monetary funds off. Businesses, you're not going to be able to pay them. You're not going to be able to bank with them. We're going to go after them and hold their money. Yeah. Force them out. Yeah. 4'5". Exactly. That's, 4'5". I don't know what to make of that, but look, I think in some way you have to consider we're going to see the uptick of this violence that, as Rubio pointed out, as Bissett pointed out on Friday, but what is developing from the Department of State that's being put out right now, which we're going to cover, is this. And I think this was the big news of the day that a lot of people need to see, that the report details decades-long influence and espionage campaign that continues to this day. This is pervasive. I will drop all this
welcome
stuff.
back. Breaking today.
I got more of this stuff.
A report out from the State Department. It details a decades-long Cuban influence campaign right here in the U.S., targeting U.S. politics. The report says Havana has been using ideological networks and organizations there to advance its agenda 90 miles away off the coast of Florida and undermine Western ideals. Secretary of State Marco Rubio calls Cuba, quote, the leading sponsor of radical leftism and third worldism in the U.S. So let's bring in Tommy Pigott. He's spokesperson for the Department of State. Tommy, this caught our eye from this report here at Fox News. Take a look. These are just some of the organizations implicated in this Cuban influence campaign, all of them American groups. Code Pink, ICAP, the People's Forum, Democratic Socialists of America, National Lawyers Guild, National Network on Cuba. It's one thing to say that the Cuban regime poses a national security threat to the United States, something you and the Secretary say all the time. It is another to say they're actually interfering or trying to interfere in the U.S. political system.
Well, the National Network on Cuba, for example, issued a rapid response plan calling for agitation and resistance, publishing the location of ICE facilities, of military installations. That gives one powerful example of this network. We also see from Cuban-linked groups, we're seeing fomentation of protests and other violent activity. And then we see other Cuban-linked groups then bail those that are in jail for violent activity, bail them out of prison to release them back onto American streets. This report details a decades-long influence and espionage campaign that continues to this day and really is an untold story. It's a story where we hear bits and pieces here and there, but presents this as the network that it is linked to the Cuban regime, both ideologically through logistical support and as the nexus, the node of a network of far-left extremism that is undermining the security of the United States of America.
Wow. And that's setting up, for what? That our invasion, that's really, we're going to have an invasion in Cuba. No doubt about it. However that looks like, I see troops in Cuba. No doubt about that. I don't see anything else other than we have to secure that country. There's a lot more nefarious things that are happening, that are going on, that are under the radar, that have been going on and operational since 2007. A lot of people don't understand about how Cuba has infected our political, let's just say, stream, and it's very dogmatic. And here it is, Secretary Marco Rubio. More than 6 decades, the Cuban regime has been leading the sponsor of radical leftism. Yeah, it's uptick, but in the last, let's say, 2 decades, it's gotten worse. The State Department is exposing a full history of Cuban espionage and subversion in our country. The American people deserve to know. I'm going to show you this real quickly. And what I'm going to do is, all right, let me see. I can't download it. All right. Okay, let me get back out of this, stop sharing the screen, and I will share this with you. So you guys can go and click on this yourself. So if you haven't read this yet, I highly suggest that you look at this, click on this, open this thing up in the chat or whatever you want to do. And it's like 45 pages of stuff that they put out. So I dropped that. Yeah, for some reason, it's not letting me do it, but I can open it up over here. I think I got something else from the State Department. I'll show you. Yeah, this comes from military.com. Yeah, this is the point of what they were saying, because I downloaded this because I was having a problem opening this up. So the State Department report, this is what it is. But it's in the chat, and what I would do is I would definitely have that and download that. So the State Department report, Cuba foments far-left extremism runs by spy rings in the U.S. This is where things are going to, I think, uptick from. I think Marco Rubio is pointing this out. This is where a lot of this stuff, this nonsense is coming from. State Department says this. It says publishing a report, which I just dropped you in the chat, so you guys can have that, and then click on it, and then you can download all that information, accusing Cuba of fomenting left-wing extremism in the United States and building a sophisticated espionage and influence network focused on penetrating and undermining U.S. interests. Wow. The report finds nearly 7 decades, the Cuban regime has played an indispensable role in nearly every notable far-left insurgency. a revolution in militant movement across and beyond the Western Hemisphere. In meeting Wednesday on far-left extremism with officials more than 60 countries, Secretary of State Rubio made a similar point. The Cuban regime's sprawling intelligence and ideological networks help build the far left in our country and in our hemisphere, he said, and it remains inextricably linked to the far left groups and movements across and beyond the West. The State Department is publishing the report, as I dropped in the chat. The administration is ramping up pressure on the Cuban government to make economic and political reforms in an executive order, expanding sanctions on the Cuban government in May. The report makes the case that Cuba's failed state economy masks one of the most effective foreign intelligence and influence operations in modern history. Though comprehensive, the report uses public sources and does not make any new disclosures about such activities. The 65-page document obtained by Miami Herald goes through an historical account of Cuba's efforts to export guerrilla movements and its own version of Marxism, forged around a fundamental hatred of the United States, and to bring about a hemispheric march of revolution against the West itself, and it discusses at length how Cuba has built alliances with far-left organizations as part of the long-term war, a war of attrition to erase the United States from Earth. Wow. Yep. So I dropped it in the chat. I suggest you read it. It's fantastic. Marco Rubio really just putting Cuba on blast. What they're saying is that Cuba, all right, for whatever it is, we're not fully understanding how extensive and pervasive they've had building this coalition of anti-Americanism that's been going on for a very long time. And what they have penetrated our government at various levels in different places and organizations to help foment a certain, let's just say, anti-American rationale. All right. And that rationale has permeated under the guise of Marxism, but it's far more darker. It's far more, let's just say, deeper and blacker, because it intersects with many different other groups. And that's why Islamists and other groups and Muslims are also intersected with this type of theology, or let's just say, I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. This mental disease that we have that permeates everywhere. And what it does is that it gives people a way to push back if they feel in some way that they have been, let's just say, left behind, or if they felt like their voice is not being given a point. And what this type of influence does is that it sets up levels. We're going back beyond the Bill Ayers days. Okay. It's the Weather Underground. This is much more deeper, much more pervasive. I think a lot of people are not really understanding how the narrative is being pushed out there. And so Marco Rubio is putting this out. This is basically going to undercut, I believe, a lot of stuff that we're going to do when we take back Cuba. Because remember, it's not the Cuban government. Okay, it's an enterprise, an LLC, a corporation who has taken over Cuba and also utilizes that same type of intelligence apparatus to undercut and foment this hatred that they're putting out there, because they have so much money, okay, to pay these people. They have so much wealth that they get in order to disperse this out. And this has been going on for a very long time. And it's about time something is done. Nothing gets done around here. Welcome in from the True Reporting over here stream. I know he rated the show. What's up? Astro71. Good to see everybody over here. Let's see, you guys had some comments. Yeah, Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Darnell for the can. We're literally living amongst a bunch of two-faced monsters. Yeah, we're living with a lot of people in general that we can no longer deal with. And you know what? It's no wonder that, the 10% of our population has an average IQ of 80 or less. It's no wonder, because they penetrated the Department of Education. They penetrated, you said, in many other different groups in some way to spread this wealth of knowledge. I mean, just the tentacles alone of Marxism that is inside our country, that continues to rear its ugly head. It's gross, it's ugly, and to think in some way this is going to be our replacement. That's why they pushed so many people in here. That's why this stuff was a breeding ground, a harbinger for a long time. And now we're starting to see, now the more and more we tackle this, the more and more you're able to see that this is happening on a daily basis. All right, let me get to a couple other things here. All right, this was the other thing I want to show you. This is another one from another good one from Observing Consciousness. Now, I like his stuff on X. Puts out some really good time stuff, especially when in regards to specific things. And here now it's Cuba that he's talking about. He says Cuba is the next logical move. Lebanon reveals the mechanism. Iran reveals the leverage. Venezuela reveals the sequencing, and Cuba reveals the next node. Interesting. Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba were all held together through oil, intelligence, sanctions, resistance, and financial channels tied to the CCP and the City of London's global banking architecture. Now the structure is being dismantled from outside inward. Iran is pulled toward a controlled agreement. Hezbollah is placed inside a measurable disarmament sequence. Venezuela is separated from the network that has sustained Havana and the financial intermediaries moving money, commodities, and influence through Beijing and London, which face a growing exposure. That leaves Cuba isolated. Its energy lifelines narrow. Its foreign enablers face consequences. Its financial escape routes close. And every remaining ally must choose between preserving Havana and retaining access to the American system. This is the same model. Break the alliance, remove the external pillars, close the energy and financial exits, reduce every available move, then force the system towards sovereignty, accountability, and normalization. Interesting. Iran is pulled inward. Venezuela is detached. And the CCP loses another strategic foothold. The City of London loses another financial channel, and Cuba stands exposed 90 miles from America. Boom. Cuba's the next logical move because the system keeping it alive is being removed at one connection at a time. Trump has already begun the process. He needs to just let the trilateral agreement cycle through a few violations before conflating to Cuba. Pressure, sequencing, isolation, accountability, normalization, all linked to the post below. Very good. Good analogy. Way to bring this out. And I think that we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Iran in order for Cuba to drop. And I think that's fantastic. We're all hoping on this. We're all waiting this. I think in some way this is a great thing. I think everybody's prepared for this. I wanted to see Cuba a long time ago be taken down, and I think it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. And I think that we're just waiting to see how much longer this Iran situation is going to continue on, unless it's less fluid than it needs to be, and something will give way that they will recognize inside the administration, and then from there, that's when our next move is. All right, continuing on. All right, let's move on. So here we go. The New York Post puts this out. I bet you guys didn't hear this. I saw this the other day. So a hero Tucson cops, this is Tucson, Arizona, stop a mass shooting that left 9 people critically wounded. And, let me just tell you right now, they're not releasing the person's identity. They're not releasing the person's name or let's just say their race, their religion, or anything like that. I wonder why that is. Hero cops in Tucson stopped a gunman that opened fire in downtown crowd, leaving 9 people critically wounded. Let me see if this will play here. All right. But we're not hearing too much about that. No one was killed. Those officers immediately began running towards the sound of gunfire. In doing so, they came upon the suspect. Officers gave the suspect repeated commands before ultimately one of those officers discharged his firearm at the suspect, striking him. He continued. The suspect then, apparently, whose identity is not being released publicly. Why do you think? Yes, exactly, Sean Joe. I was thinking that most likely it's a tranny. Because I think we've already gone past the wall where they release people's, let's just say, facial profiles, if they're black or brown, third world, what have you, white. They'll release it all. But they still hold these things back. So the question is, they say a man whose identity is not being released. So yes, that resonates with me. The investigation remains ongoing, and police are urging anyone who witnessed the shooting to contact Peanut County Sheriff's Office. But look, nobody was injured. People were injured, but no one was killed. And so they stopped this right away. So I guess this was happening at 2 a.m. Wow. I don't know. I think there's more to this subject, but no one's like wanting to touch this at the moment. And again, very limited information that's coming out. Is it part of this too? Yeah, I'm concerned that we're going to see more of this. So, the fat and gay critic, who I call, this guy all the time. He's always, look, he's always attacking. This guy's got nothing positive to say. And all he does is what? He's in attack mode. He's not positive. And all he's doing is what? Shit talking. All right. And he's basically, and I think this type of shit talking right here to suggest in some way to undercut and to highlight what ABC, CNN, NBC, CBS did by not airing the presidential speech in some way it's far more, let's just say, dangerous to continue on this level, because if you are operating in this manner to suggest that what President Trump was outlining and suggesting that we have a series of problems and that these problems should not be taken seriously because of people like this, they're in the White House, they have Congress, they have the Senate, they have the Supreme Court, and not them. I don't want to hear about deep state anymore. You're playing everyone for a fool. You'll be the stupidest people on. See, that's the problem. This type of rhetoric, okay, that continues on. People fall for that shit. They believe that shit all the time. And so when he goes out there, he's basically saying, and you can see who he's simping for. I mean, who he's pimping out. He's obviously being paid, all right, to say these things. Who's he getting paid by? Oh, there's no deep state. There's no SES class. There's no administrative class whatsoever. Doesn't exist. They made this up.
In the White House, they have the Congress. They have the Senate. They have the Supreme Court. It is them. It is now them. I don't want to hear about the deep state anymore. You're playing me for a fool. You're playing everyone for a fool. You brought in Kash Patel. You brought in that other guy, Dan Bongino. You threw him out or he left, whatever. You brought in Pam Bondi and then threw her out. I'm sick of hearing about this deep state. All of these people, you have to be one of the stupidest people in the world to fall for this shit at this point. You are peddling the dumbest, most, by the way, I hate to use this word, but cringe. It's literally cringe. You watch this and you go, I feel so disgusted by the fact that they think people are still gonna believe this shit. Well, it's the deep state. It's the deep state. You guys covered all this shit up. Polymarket has it like that. We're like the odds to put boots on the ground before 2027 is almost 30%. It's like a 26% chance. I think it's much higher than that. I think they're wrong on this.
And that's why I'm showing you that. That's what we talked about earlier.
There's nowhere to go. There's two options here. Nuke, boots on the ground. And you've got a guy in there who might do a combination.
So he's dismissing the idea that the deep state really exists in any manner. Okay? He also dismisses the idea that whoever is controlling Iran, because he doesn't really have the acumen to suggest that, there's more deeper tentacles that are involved with Iran than we possibly understand. But the Polymarket and everything that I was showing you earlier about the gloves off, the land invasion, they're using these types of simps in some way to parrot out the narrative that, look, he's either going to nuke them or he's going to invade them. There's no other choice. And then everything else doesn't matter. And they want to continue on with this and stuff. Yeah, don't worry about the first term and, with his impeachments and what the FBI did and the CIA, NSA, not like, presenting the presidential daily briefs with the proper information, hiding all that stuff as they massage it all out. See, he's basically saying, no, don't give me all that stuff. I don't buy all that stuff. That has nothing to do with this in some way. All right. You're going to nuke them or you're going to invade. See, now they're just moving on with the idea and stuff. They're trying to get you to convince that, look, the deep state don't exist. None of these things, all these bad actors don't exist. It was the Trump administration. It's always been them. And they made this all up. And that's what he's selling to you. Okay. That's the problem with these narratives. That's what he's trying to sell you. And he goes, don't get it twisted. It's either one of these things that's going to happen. All right. Everything else is bullshit. Dylan, you're one of the dumb motherfuckers. There are 50,000 FBI and DOJ texts. Yep. Just came out. These fucks still operating. Want to be shadow. Exactly. And look, they're using people like that in some way to parlay that nonsense out there, to suggest that, hey, look, the deep state, what deep state? There's no deep state in Iran. They're you know what? You attacked a sovereign country, blah, 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 and he's only going to nuke and attack them. None of that shit is real. That stuff is an excuse. That's what he's trying to say. He's trying to parrot a narrative, and I've been seeing that rolling around. That's why we discussed this early on of what people are talking about. So Bill Pulte got really scared. Listen to this. This is the acting DNI director. That the White House debate over Trump's election speech. Bill Pulte, this came out today, a Trump favorite, had one point pushed to reveal the names of intelligence officials accused of what? Concealing the election interference from President Trump. President Trump's Thursday night speech was far tamer than some of his closest aides feared. Now, we watched it here, and you guys, you ramped it up. A lot of people felt the same way. I did too. And I said, let's wait and see what happens with all the information that is going to drop. And I think what happened, we waited, and I showed you on Friday exactly what came out and what the administration put out, what people are highlighting and showcasing about all this interference, all this operations that were entangled and ensnarled in this stuff. And it was great. And we covered a lot of this stuff of what they did, a lot of stuff a lot of people didn't know about. So Acting Director National Intelligence Bill Pulte, a favorite of President Trump's, had in days leading up to the speech pushed to reveal the names of intelligence officials. Wow. Accused of concealing the election interference from Trump, according to two senior officials granted anonymity. That set off a scramble inside the White House and senior officials, including the chief of staff, Susie Wallace, fearing that it could undermine the president's broader point about election vulnerabilities and put intelligence analysts' lives at risk, the two officials said. They argued to Pulte that naming individuals involved in alleged cover-up of an election fraud could lead to conspiracy theorists to take law into their own hands. Wow. So basically you're saying is that people are going to go out and utilize this in some way as, let's just say, vigilante justice to enact their let's just say retribution onto what they did to the Trump administration. That's what they're arguing here. Pulte, who flew to New York with Trump on Friday, did not respond to a request comment about this, but Pulte got really scared by the whole thing and pulled back. He said two senior officials, he got POTUS all spun up and was incredibly scared when he realized people could die with this reckless behavior. Simultaneously, several Trump officials urged the president remain restrained on the script, notoriously difficult task for the president, whose aides often learn what the president is going to say and when he says it. Well, I mean, look, if this is the transparency of this administration, when are we going to find this stuff out? Are we going to wait until after these people are fired and removed from their positions, or let's just say, arrested in some way, indicted? When is this all going to happen? I know we're supposed to be patient. I get that. Yeah, MAGA does not do vigilante shit. I know, but that's what they're implying, Sean Joe, that they're using that as an excuse in some way to suggest that, hey, look, if they put these names out here, all right, someone is going to do something as a retaliation, whether they use that as a cover or a mask, all right, to say it's MAGA for a pushback to hit them under a guise of something else. Yeah, I could see that. It could be used as that to infiltrate MAGA and to pretend it's something of that nature, just like January 6th, all right, with the Fed slop and all that stuff. So I understand why they're not going to put it out, because it could be a liability and it could blow back. And so you want to make sure that you are crossing the T's and I's in some way, dotting the I's and getting the information out in a proper format to release this, I guess. I mean, what? Is this an illegal brief? Is this going to be an indictment? How is the information going to come out? We already know some of the named players that are in here, only by saying, hey, I'm running a shadow government. Like, what's her name? Flores said. I mean, I'm running, I'm in the, and now I work for Microsoft. Remember that? I think I got something from that broad. Anyway, moving on. I want to get to a couple other things. Okay. So there's a big pushback right now. Thank you, Trump One and Sean Joe for the cookies. I really appreciate it. Yep. You guys are all quiet over here in Rumble. What's up, no, dog? Yeah. All right, let's continue on. So the birthright citizenship, senatorship is idiotic. So this is what they're calling birthright senatorship is idiotic. MAGA fumes at Lindsey Graham's sister. Now she's going to run for a full term. Okay. Now the runoff. So basically, if she was just going to run and not run in August 11th, which is the runoff, which you got to read 50%, that the Lindsey Graham's term would have ended in January. Now she's going to be all running with 5 or 6 people for the seat, which will head off on the 11th. Now, you need to get the 50% or higher to move on. So it's kind of like those runoffs, and the top two will run off into a primary on August 25th. So they'll have 5 or 6 people running in that. All right. And, what's the point? Does she have a shot? Sister now, Senator Darlene Graham Nordome will seek a full term in office after replacing her brother. I mean, are the people going to vote for her? They don't even know her. I mean, just President Trump wants her in there. I feel like I could do it. I feel like inner peace about it. Will it be difficult? Absolutely, yes. So you're inclined to get in. So she's saying she is to Hannity. Nordome was appointed to the seat, blessing by President Trump, urged South Carolina's GOP governor to make the move. Okay, look, now there's a lot of pushback. I'm tired of nepotism. I don't want Darlene Graham. This is American girl. There's a lot of people. South Carolinians were told Darlene Graham Nordome would serve as a placeholder, not as a candidate. Were we lied to? The promise was broken. Trump has more Lindsey Graham, little demon, much more than this. So there's a lot of people don't like this. You could see, blah, blah, blah. All right. But look, that means she has to face in a runoff on the 11th with other people to get to a 50% threshold. And then from the 2 remaining candidates, they will have an August 25th runoff. I don't know what's going to happen, but apparently that's what's going to take place. So it's not like necessarily it's nepotism, but if you don't want this type of shit, then you need to call your senators, your congressmen in some way. Hey, look, we need a constitutional amendment to what? Remove the 17th Amendment, because it ain't going away. It's not going to go away. So this shit will continue on where people could be appointed by a governor with the blessing of the president. The Democrats do it all the time. All the time. All the time. Look at California's Senate seat. Okay? All the time. So I just think that if you really want to change this, then we really need some type of bicameral movement on this, but it's not going to happen. The 17th Amendment is here. Only 45 states allow that, allow the governor to pick. And there's only about 4 to 5 states that say the legislature gets involved. I don't know why anybody's bitching about this, but some people are making a big deal about it because it's Lindsey Graham's sister in some way that is doing it. Look, I don't like it either, but it is what it is. I mean, I don't know who the other candidate's going to run on August 11th. I don't live in South Carolina. So does it affect me? Probably not. I mean, if you're in South Carolina, you should be looking at this and thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to come from this? Who should I vote for? Well, Trump is supporting her, and that's it. So I don't know. All right, moving on. All right, I got a couple other things, and then we'll get to this. So, all right, let me get this. This is... All right, here's more of the election integrity stuff we got to get to. Part of the stuff that Trump was talking about on Thursday. And a lot of stuff I didn't get to cover. Declassified FBI docs dropped the receipts on 2020 Michigan voter registration fraud scheme in Muskegon. It wasn't just China getting Biden fake votes from phony registration. It was the American companies and crooked NGOs aligned with the Democrat Party. Canvassers admitted what? Signing fake names, inventing non-existent workers, and getting what? Gift cards for hitting quotas. Supervisors were told workers, excuse me, just fill out the blanks with made-up info. Biden DOJ slow-walked it for years, and now Trump has declassified everything and is demanding it be what? Reported and reopened. Look at this. Identified possible voter registration fraud in a scheme that's centered on a firm called GBI Strategies. One canvasser alleged in the local company leadership that directed employees to fill out fake information. My God. I mean, it's just, I mean, this point is that it just, the more and more that comes out of this, the more and more it makes your skin crawl. It makes you sick that you see this stuff on a daily basis and stuff. All right, let me get to a couple other things. All right, let me get to some of the stuff. There was one more other thing I wanted to cover. All right. Oh, here it is. So remember this broad? We talked about her yesterday. Well, on Friday. Well, here she is again. She's speaking at some hearing. Here's a mute.
I was basically running a shadow government inside the FBI. I operated without oversight, influencing key decisions. This must be exposed. I was basically running a shadow government inside the FBI. I operated without oversight, influencing key decisions. This must be exposed. I was
Now you see that? Amuse doing a funny thing because that is what a grok image. And that's hilarious. That's perfect. And I think that's great. And that's what needs to be shared because there is self-reported and self-purported information that Nikki Flores did admit that. And as we covered the other day, and a lot of people are spreading that around for people to know that this was happening. The problem with the AI and everything is that it undercuts, I think, the very level of quality. All right. A consistency and the possibility of undercutting the most important thing. But I think it's funny that people put that out to spread that out there. But her testifying there is great. That was perfect, spot on. Thank you, Sean Joe, for the cookie. All right, Amuse comes back. All right, here we go. Let's get into the parasite poop problem we're having. This parasite poop problem is all over the place. It's spreading like wildfire, and a lot of people don't understand this, don't understand what's going on. We blow this up. I want to cover this because it's a serious subject matter that it's people are not taking seriously, but people are getting sick and no one has died yet. But the U.S. Food and Drug Administration said Sunday that lettuce sample from Taylor Farms de Mexico was falsely identified as a possible source of the cyclospora outbreak that was sickening people across the United States. So why the pullback? Why come back and say it wasn't that when they were admitting that they're pulling them off the shelves? They're putting the romaine lettuce and all these other lettuces off the shelf, citing the complexity of the cyclospora detection. The agency said its laboratory experts reviewed early sample results and determined its early finding was a false positive. Do you believe them? The U.S. Food and Drug Administration said Sunday the lettuce sample from Taylor Farms de Mexico was falsely identified. Citing the complexity of the cyclospora detection, the agency said its laboratory experts revealed early the sample results and determined its finding was false positive. Last week, the U.S. health officials identified lettuce from a supplier in Mexico as a source of this contamination in food served at Taco Bell restaurants in 5 Midwestern states. Yeah, gross. I don't eat a Taco Bell, and I don't think you should either. FBI has notified Taylor Farms and continues working with the firm to ensure the product implicated in this outbreak has been removed from the market. The agency said in a statement Sunday, which it said there are no confirmed positive sample results from cyclospora in the product testing. The FDA said that and the state partners continue to collect and analyze. So they still don't know. They're backtracking on this. So we still don't know necessarily what this is. Is this from the water supply? Is this from the fires? Last week, U.S. health officials identified lettuce from Mexico as a source of this contamination food served at a Taco Bell restaurant in Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. On Friday, Taylor Farms of de Mexico of Guanajuato, Mexico, voluntarily recalled the product. So they voluntarily to be contaminated with diarrhea-causing parasite, listing more than 24 shredded lettuce and salad mixing products sold under this. The recalled product was limited to iceberg lettuce grown and processed in Central America. According to Taylor Farms, the product has been shipped to 27 states, including Florida, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Texas. I haven't bought any, and I definitely don't eat. I don't typically buy lettuce. I mean, I like romaine, but I'm very sketch about a lot of stuff these days. So, and also washing it off with the veggie wash. I don't know if that's going to be good enough in this matter, but what we're finding here is that the FDA is now walking this back. And so there's still not a definitive answer of where this came from and how this spread. The California-based company is one of the world's largest lettuce exporting companies, according to the Global Trade. I wouldn't eat Taco Bell even if it were free. Exactly. I wouldn't eat Taco Bell if you fucking dropped it off. I wouldn't. I don't eat any of that stuff. All that stuff. This is an example of why. And even though they say they jumped the gun and that there was all false positive testing, all right, that it's not really the lettuce. Well, what about all the people that got sick that didn't eat at Taco Bell? Okay, you're going to tell me all these people ate at Taco Bell and it's not Taco Bell and it's not the lettuce. So what is it then? Our thoughts remain with everyone who has fallen ill in this outbreak. Taylor Farms' statement said, we're committed to working with the public health. Yeah, that company's going to tank with authorities that are ongoing. Even though they're not responsible, apparently. Cyclospora is a microscopic parasite that infects foods that's come into contact with human feces. Obviously, So whoever's handling produce and all this stuff, don't wash their fucking hands. Don't wash their hands regularly after they take a shit. And it's disgusting. It's gross. Produce is irrigated or washed in contaminated water. There you go. Could be the Mexican water. It could be disgusting. It could be the Mexican. But the idea that the FDA, CDC have been looking at this and testing it, that there's no, let's just say, causation or causal connection between that in some way. On Friday, the CDC said cyclospora sickened at least 1,644 people in the United States, with 94 hospitalized. Wow. And the illness started between the 13th of May and July 13th. The agency, the outbreak may not be limited to states with known illnesses. So they're walking it back that it was this type of lettuce at the stores, which is at Costco, Kroger, all these other places. And they're also saying that the lettuce that was at Taco Bell, they didn't say anything else. They just said the contamination of the lettuce, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. So here's another point. This comes from the FDA about this, and I'll read you this because this stuff is disgusting. I mean, this is what makes me sick, because now you have to look at it this way. I mean, was this done on purpose, or was it just an accident of contamination? I mean, that we talked about it like a year or two ago, that there were going to be in some way hitting our food sources, our water sources, and contaminating them and doing some type of terrorist activity. Could this be argued as a terrorist situation? I don't know. No one has died yet, so it hasn't reached anything to its highest capacity. But the 5-state outbreak cyclospora illnesses, iceberg lettuce, July 2026. On July 17th, Taylor Farms of Mexico announced they are voluntarily moving all this stuff. Okay. Iceberg salad, shredded lettuce, best used by dates, blah, blah, blah. They're saying there's symptoms of cyclospora infection. The people needed this that are infected develop diarrhea, bowel movements. Other common symptoms include nausea, loss of appetite. Yeah, it's basically food poisoning. I mean, look at this. Stomach cramps, pain, bloating, increased gas, nausea, and fatigue. That sounds like food poisoning to me. Vomiting, body aches, headache, fever. If you ever had food poisoning, and I've had it several times, that's it. If not treated, the illness can be lead to dehydration, several complications, higher levels of care. I mean, you're going to need antibiotics and other things that go along with it. The symptoms may go away and return more times than relapse. So here's the affected areas. These are the states where Taylor Foods are. Recalled markets. Here they are. Taco Bell locations receive this. So even though they're putting this out, there's no direct link that it is Taylor Fresh Foods or Taco Bell. It's just that they voluntarily recalled them. Interesting. Don't eat recalled lettuce. Who would eat anything recalled? If you have symptoms of cyclospora, contact your healthcare provider. The current update is that there's no news. The FDA has notified Taylor Farms that they have a false positive, that there's no certainty that it was them in any way. So we don't know how this is spreading, why it's spreading, but just be advised, stay away from lettuce, romaine lettuce, Taylor Farms, any recalled products. Don't eat any packaged lettuce in some way. I wouldn't eat Taco Bell. Yeah, don't eat Taco Bell. I mean, stay away from them in some way. I mean, remember, what was that one that had the norovirus outbreak? Chipotle. Remember Chipotle? And they were going on and on with that stuff. Remember that? That was on for years. On again, off again. Is it Taylor Farms? Yeah, Taylor Farms. And I guess they're at Kroger's. They're at I don't know if they're at Trader Joe's, because Trader Joe's has their own stuff. They're at Costco. They're at Publix. A couple of places I read where they were. But yeah, Taylor Farms. I don't know. I mean, but the idea, it's just weird that they don't lay out what the reason was that they walked this back. I have a copy of the patient for teleporting somewhere in old files. Okay. Willow Lady 76. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Who else is here? Let me thank you. All right. Let me get out of this. All right. Moving on. Because I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. All right. Did anybody hear about this? This came over the weekend. It was hush, hush, and quiet. It just came in and came out, and then the articles disappeared.
Key. Honolulu police say they arrested the suspect while he was already in custody for a separate crime. Prosecutors this morning charged 55-year-old Batarti Gabbard, also known.
This is Gabbard's brother. This is Tulsi Gabbard's brother. Listen to this.
Known as Bhakti Gabbard, with custodial interference. Now, if the name sounds familiar, he's the brother of former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. And according to police, he allegedly offered a 9-year-old boy money and other items if he came up to his room in Waikiki over the weekend. The boy left, or he left, I should say, after the boy refused. Officers later arrested Gabbard on a separate theft misdemeanor along Dukes Lane last night. He appeared in court this morning and pleaded not guilty to that crime. Gabbard was released and is set to be back in court for the theft offense on August 14th. No court date set for his custodial interference case.
They're saying that he has mental issues. It's just, this is weird in some way. Did they set him up? I'll show you this right now. A lot of people are making a suggestion that was he set up in some way because they felt like this was a way to get back to Tulsi, but they in some way got ahead of this. I don't know, but this is aired. And how long ago was this being, let's just say, held back or was recently released in some way? But was this a reaction towards Tulsi Gabbard dropping stuff? Tulsi Gabbard's brother accused of offering children money and gum to follow him into his Waikiki hotel room. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. I mean, this sounds like payback, but police arrest Batari Gabbard, approached children in a Waikiki hotel room while his family says he was experiencing serious mental health crisis. The elder brother of the former U.S. intelligence chief, Tulsi Gabbard, spent Friday night in a Honolulu police cell block after being charged over what investigators described as a stranger danger incident at a Waikiki hotel pool. Gabbard, 55, he was arrested and charged with a second-degree custodial interference on July 17th after Honolulu police alleged he approached several children at a pool 5 days earlier, offering them gum and money 5 days earlier, okay, and recording their names in a notebook. The children refused. He walked away. According to the police, no child was harmed. The allegations unfolded alongside a family crisis laid out in a protective order. The petition filed by his wife and a written statement from the parents who say their son had suffered mental health breakdown in the days apparent before the incident. Poolside approach reported by bystander. It opened investigation after receiving the report of a stranger danger incident. Tulsi Gabbard's brother, Barati, I forget how to pronounce it, Barati, has been arrested in attempting to lure and kidnap multiple children. That's what they're claiming. They're claiming he has mental issues. The children turned down and left the area. Nobody was harmed. 42-year-old woman reported the encounter, and detectives identified Gabbard as the suspect on Friday. Wow. So what's your thoughts on this? I mean, let's see what you got to say about this. I mean, this is kind of odd, right? Willow Lady 6, I don't know how I got here. That's funny. How did I get where the truth is about anything you know? Yep. I mean, look, I don't know what to make of this. This is a very odd thing in some way. Sounds like it's either a little combination of payback or this guy does have mental problems or they're painting him out to have mental problems in some way. No child was hurt in some way, but it sounds fishy. It just sounds odd in some way. Is it probably fake news? Trump won? I don't. I mean, that's the International Business Times. I saw this on 5 or 6 different articles. I was looking to scour if this was real or not, but it wasn't just one piece. There's multiple news sources that are suggesting this. Thank you, Darlell, for the can. Sean Joe for the cookie. Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I'm not really sure about this. It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. So yeah, I really don't know. All right, moving on before we dip out. All right. One last thing about this guy. And, I don't know why Tim Dillon. See, my problem with Tim Dillon, I'm starting to see a pattern. I think Tim Dillon is being paid as an agent provocateur. He's not a comedian doing a show as he normally does. He's definitely, it looks like that there is something like he is paid like we look at other people that are paid on X in some way that are doing it. He's not doing a bit or stand-up. Listen to what he says here in some way. This is completely different. This is like someone being paid like a Tucker Carlson or a Laura Loomer or Candace Owens in some way. He is now moving off the stream of consciousness from a comedy to something more, not satirical, but something more poignant. And you can see that level. Where is he coming with? And he's using his comedic, let's just say, narrative to, I think, uses to cover something a little bit more that he's portending. Let's listen a little bit. Oh, wait, hold on. Mine is not. Okay, hold on, let me share it. It's not sharing. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he's saying this, but listen to what he says here. There's something off about this.
Guys, the vice president of the United States of America going on the biggest podcast in the world going, yep, I read all the files. Trump's innocent. Also, I'll always believe there was a greater conspiracy there. I'll always think something was going on. But what am I going to do? I'm the vice president. That's J.D. Vance's character arc right now. Is his whole entire thing is just telling people what the vice president can't do. Like, what about the war in Iran? He goes, there's not much I can do. I just kind of hang out and, watch as I'm part of the administration that betrays its voters and does the opposite of everything it said it was going to do. I just kind of hang out and, this Epstein thing, who knows? What are you going to do? It's a lot of what are you going to do energy from the vice president.
That's a good point, Sean Joe. I thought Dylan made his money, his nig money on stock market. I thought he did too. But obviously he's being paid to do this. Who's paying him? That's a question.
I'm not saying the vice president's like an all-powerful figure, but it's just hilarious that, that's his argument. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yeah, these Epstein docs, isn't that nuts, Joe? You heard about that? What? You're the vice president of the United States. They keep trying to play this game where they're like this folksy, kind of relatable, yeah, these fucking elites with they're fucking the kids. They're stealing your money. What? Who? You're doing it. You're the ones who are doing it. And they're relying on the fact that some of their most ardent supporters, the ones who aren't directly being paid off, are the stupidest people in the world. So that still works on them. They're like, yeah, fucking Hillary. Hillary Clinton. Fucking Hillary Clinton. They're in the White House. They have the Congress. They have the Senate. They have the Supreme Court. It is them.
Same. And see, he had that paper there, and he had sections cut off in some way. I'm telling you that there's something off about Tim Dillon. And Tim Dillon is being utilized in some way. I think he's getting paid to agitprop the stuff out. Yeah, look, the whole thing. And then he says that anybody who's towing any of these lines to discuss anything, to walk this down, you're suckers, you're fools. He's calling you suckers. He's calling me suckers. He's saying that, how do we explain this stuff to the people? Okay, we can't. They're lying to you. Don't believe them. They're completely taking the whole. I mean, that's what he's saying. He's basically saying that you're all fools, you're all suckers, and that we're all being led down a prim path, and it doesn't lead to us anywhere, and it's going to be destructive. All right, and that's what he's telling you. He's being paid to tell you that lie, that narrative. He's telling you 100% in some way. These are the alternatives. He doesn't sound like anybody different who has this the same programs that are on X that do the same type of shilling all the time. All right, and I see it all the time. I see how divisive he's gotten, and he's ratcheted up more and more. He was just attacking J.D. Vance for being on the Joe Rogan podcast about saying all this stuff. He got man-tits on a fake set, on a fake set. Yeah, I mean, but again, the question is, who's paying him? Who's paying him to spread this stuff? You don't go out there and say all this shit knowing full well. I mean, look, there's a lot of money to be made, ladies and gentlemen, in spreading that disinfo, that propaganda. There is. Just look at a lot of the people that are on X that make a shit ton of money spreading that information, that agitprop. I mean, it's all over, whether they're getting paid from China or Israel or Qatar or all these other fucking places. There's so many people that are involved getting paid, getting sponsors all over the place to toe a line, to toe a narrative, to be against the administration all the time. And it's embarrassing. And you can see through it. It's when it becomes so hyperbolic and over the top, it's an op. You know what I'm saying? It's more than an op. And I think that Tim Dillon is now, his comedic routine is now, It's taken a dive, and you're starting to see the ugly embers of who he is, who he's become. And you know what? He's not funny anymore, because all he is, he sounds like somebody else, or someone else's on X. Yes, that's the projection. I agree. Someone is paying him, and the question is, who is paying him? He must be making a lot of money, because all he does now is attack the administration, attack Iran, attack you and I. So when you see that, he's no different than the controlled oppositions that are on X all over the place. You know, the Alex Jones and all these other people who are never Trumpers, whatever. They pretend to be, but they're not. And they do a lot of different shady things in some way to, I guess, make you think in some way, or to, let's just say, give you some type of pause and say, wait a minute, well, that's a good point. And then I'll give you the 20% of information that is real while I lie to you about the other 80%. So the 20-80 people, I call them out there, they give you a little bit of information, they smooth it out, they massage it in, and then after that, it's all down there. It's all downhill lying from there. And that's the crap they're selling. That's how you can see right through it. All right, one last thing we're going to get to on Newsbusters. This came out. Let me see if it'll play. This was Mark Warner. He was on the Sunday show, Face the Nation, I believe, and he said this. And he got pushback. Let me see if it plays. Let's see.
The president, as you know, declassified intelligence this past week. He argues there's vulnerabilities in infrastructure. It has been public for years that the intelligence community assessed China tried to influence the U.S. election, basically change what people think, not necessarily hack their ballots, so to speak. Listen to what he said here, though.
This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference.
Has your committee been given evidence to back up those claims that suggest a direct ability to interfere?
No, absolutely not. And matter of fact, there are so many absurdities and falsehoods in Trump's Thursday night speech, and I'm glad that most media treated it not as serious news. And I know some folks at your network, the journalists, I have huge respect for. I was disappointed that your senior management made the decision to cover it as news.
He's celebrating the censorship. He is. He's celebrating what they did. I mean, it's disgraceful. I mean, this guy, the fact is, he knows the intelligence. He knows what's going on. He's celebrating this. And he's telling you right now, we need more of this. This is what's coming.
There's so many falsehoods. Where to begin? You know, the only election that Trump is concerned about is 2020. Mm-hmm. That was the election that his administration was in charge of.
Right.
Matter of fact, the director of national intelligence, Mr. Radcliffe, it was DNI then. He's CIA director now.
Right.
If there was mistakes made, why is he CIA director? You know, he goes through this focus on China when he forgets or just omits the biggest country that tries to influence on every election is Russia. Mm-hmm. We've documented that time and again. And the complete conclusion of the intelligence community, 18 different agencies said, yes, folks tried to influence. Didn't mean they changed any vote, and they sure didn't interfere in the machinery. Mm-hmm.
Man, I mean, this guy just keeps going on there with his media spins left and right. He's an embarrassment. And saying, the upper management, I dropped the pills. I don't know why it's not going. Give it some time. I don't understand why he keeps going on there and referring, well, President Trump, everything he said is absurdity. No, he's not. We proved it definitively. But he's got to go on and face the nation in some way. Yeah, face the Dems to sell this narrative. And more of this information is going to be parsed out. And we're going to probably see more and more very soon, because all they're going to do is what? Because he has to answer for all this stuff. All right. When are people going to hold him accountable? He goes on these nations that don't push back in some way. Well, I'm glad that, CBS, some of you guys are good reporters, but the management made him cover it. He's basically saying we want him to be censored left and right. We're okay. But you know what? Let them do this in some way. It's not all the affiliates. It's not all these groups and stuff. This is all going to backfire on them. It's not about the licenses being pulled in some way. You're seeing how bad it is. They know that it's going to get a lot worse for them. And the only thing they could do is what? Make sure you don't hear it and see it. But they can't do that on X. They can't do that on Truth Social. It's too late. It's too late. Well, that's our show for tonight. I will return on Wednesday for the Wednesday trifecta. Thanks again, everybody out there. $1 gift to the can. Yeah, that motherfucker came in and out of droves, so it wouldn't have been too big to rig. Yeah, I mean, look, these guys that push the narrative about January 6th and all this stuff, and they're just banging the drum and saying, yeah, President Trump want to pay these people out with this fund and all this stuff. Yeah, no, there's no recourse for that. There's no restitution of damage for anybody. All right, there's none. People got no restitution damages. They lost their businesses. They lost their families. They had divorces. Some people committed suicide. And it never ends with all this stuff. And these people keep continuing pushing the bullshit. And you know what? It's so scary. It's so ugly that all this information that we learned that happened about 2020 was the reason why we got January 6th. And then from that, what fell apart? The funding of Black Lives Matter, keeping the lie going with COVID, all that stuff. And don't ever forget what China was doing with the fake videos of all these people dropping dead during COVID. And remember that? All that stuff that they were putting out, all that propaganda they were putting out, all these people dying. That was all a lie. It was all a lie. And it was what? To convince you, to scare you, and set you up to believe that COVID was as worse as it was, and it was really about the jab. Well, that's our show for tonight. I will see everybody on Wednesday. Thanks again, guys. Have a good evening. Ciao. Be well, be safe, be smart. We'll see you again. Bye.